Okay, we should be live.
What's going on, everybody?
All right, as far as I can tell, we're no longer having technical difficulties. So,
You should
awesome.
mute Discord though.
All right. Hello and welcome to Lesson Learned, a conversation about Mythcraft. I am Corey Griffin,
And I'm Joey Hosmer.
and today we'll be talking to you about what is Mythcraft and why did we choose it. So, you know, I, a good little starting point for us is what is this? Like, what is lesson learned? So, lesson learned is a bit of a passion project where me and Joey will be talking through Mythcraft in general. We'll explore all the rules, the BOP system, class talents, combat magic talents, pretty much whatever we decide to do, and whatever we get comments on,
Yep.
you know. But I guess like, what is Mythcraft? Is a good thing to start with.
Yeah. So Mythcraft is a relatively new TTRPG. For those who are just tuning in, don't really know, TTRPGs are tabletop role-playing games, much like D&D, um, and it's a very interesting system. It's different than um, like Dungeons and Dragons 5e is one of the more popular ones out there. Um, so really this one has a lot of complex character creation, rich combat, a huge eon spanning universe. It is a d20 based system just like D&D, so you'll get a familiar experience uh, if you've played before, but it's also really easy to learn for some first timers as well. What One of the biggest differences I've seen in some other TTRPGs I've played is it actually utilizes an action point system, um, and which for me I really enjoy because I like playing like turn-based action games, and so it really blends together like a tactical gameplay, but you also still get a rich narrative experience out of it too. Um, I've also heard from a lot of feedback that people refer to the game as a medium crunch. So it's not, it's not all about numbers. It's not all about, role playing. There's a really fine tuned, uh, good experience in the middle. So it's called medium crunch. You got, there's some math, there's some number crunching to do, but it's not daunting or so over the top that it's not fun.
I mean, you're not going to need a calculator and spreadsheets. So,
I don't know. There's been some times I've used a calculator, but that's a me thing.
is that more on your math skills or
I think it's more of like an attorney, or not an attorney, uh, crunching like literal currency numbers.
okay? Yeah, okay. In our actual play, I do tend to give you quite a bit of currency.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, so as far as the game goes, it's super customizable when it comes to character creation. I Other than somebody who's absolutely just going to sit there and do the most min max thing possible, you're never, yeah, exactly. You're really never going to see a duplicate character. It's
Oh,
so hard.
yeah.
like I said, unless you're just absolutely like, I'm going to play a martial character and they're gonna be as broken as possible. I mean, obviously you're gonna find similarities with other people who are doing the same thing. But if you're making a character because you've got this, idea in your head of what you want to see, there's no way that you're gonna end up running into something similar to somebody else. You might have, oh yeah, they use a bow just like this other character, but it'd be pretty hard pressed to find the exact same kind of character from one campaign to another.
Definitely. And for those of us that do love the number crunchiness, we might cover some of that in a future episode. Hopefully. It's one of the things I want to cover, but we'll see.
All right, what else you got for us?
So, what is your favorite part of Mythcraft?
Ooh, that's
Right,
it's
right.
like asking me what my favorite anime is. That's
I
that's
have.
a tough. Yeah, I know. Um, yeah, that's a So I guess in other conversations we've had before, um, I think one of my favorite things is honestly the action point system. I think it works really well for my play style because it's it's less about a okay, I've got this thing to do, and then I have one of these things to do, and then I've got some movement that I can do. It's okay, I have this many points, my actions cost this many items. I can hold over some of those action points. So what can I do on subsequent turns with those bonus points that I'm holding? So it really makes you use your brain when it comes to, you know, combat and how to manipulate the board, how to move around the board, how to move yourself, the synergy that you have with people who are in your party. Um, and so I mean I can't tell you how many times playing in a session where I've had this plan and then one of our character goes, oh, by the way, now that it's the start of your turn, here's an extra action point. I'm like, well, that changes everything that I can do. Now I can make 2 attacks instead of one and then something else. It's stuff like that. So I really enjoy the action point system quite a lot about Mythcraft. It's definitely up there as one of my favorites.
So, for me, it is the different defenses, which we'll get into more. Being able to build different characters to target different defenses has been really fun for me. It's also led to a lot of my number crunching, but
That's
we'll
what you get for being the DM. So
yeah. Well, in Mythcraft, we're called MCs,
fair enough. Fair enough.
but also just getting something interesting and usable at every character level.
Yep. Yep. That too.
And just being able to weave in whatever you want, whenever you want, as long as you meet the requirements. Which that phrase is going to get said quite a bit.
Yeah. There's definitely prerequisites for different things you have to take, but it makes sense. It's a bit like anybody who's familiar with a class tree, you're going to have a bunch of prerequisites, but it's just your typical progression through a class tree. Mm-hmm. There are some other things that require certain levels, like your level 5, 10, 15. You have to hit certain milestones with your levels, but most of the time it's a pretty natural progression.
Right. Like, But I guess what I was meaning, like, just because I'm a strength based warrior doesn't mean I can't grab some magic without taking a class.
Yeah, also very true.
You know, like there's so much interplay that you can get. That again, we'll go way more in detail later. This is our pilot episode. So, don't want to spoil everything we have planned yet.
Yeah.
Um, another question that I've got for you is like, why are we doing this with Mythcraft?
Because it's awesome. No,
I mean, that's a good answer.
yeah,
That's why I
Mythcraft
did
is
it.
awesome. No, so it really started because it's just kind of it's a new system, um, with the group that thanks Daniel, appreciate that. Thanks for the heads up on that. Um, but yeah, no, so it started with basically Quasi Real Publishing announcing that they were gonna make Mythcraft. And we were already kind of listening to some of the podcasts they were producing and stuff like that, which is where we all met anyways. And once they started talking about the game, and it just kind of ticked off a bunch of check boxes for a bunch of us. You
Yeah.
know, something we like here, something we like there, something we like over there. I mean, pretty much I didn't find anything wrong with it at all. There wasn't anything that I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. No, it was immediately, I love this. I want to play it. Let's play it. And with the way the timing just kind of worked out for everything, we started talking about wanting to do a podcast. We got serious about wanting to do a podcast. Then the Kickstarter finally came out, and we're like, cool. Well, Mythcraft it is.
Yep. Yep. And then, so lesson learned is because we get quite a few questions about different things about Mythcraft. So we decided we would go ahead and do this live stream, which will then get posted, so that people can go back and look. And like, we didn't write it. We're explaining the rules as we understand them. That being said, everyone could play a slightly different game of Mythcraft, and that's okay. You know?
Yeah. Ultimately, at the end of the day, your table is your table. If we have a ruling this way, but your MC wants to rule it a different way, you hear it done a third way in a different context. That's how it is. And that's the cool thing about Mythcraft and a lot of other TTRPGs too. But I mean, it's yours to make yours, especially with you and your table.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, Another one of the talking points that we have is like, and we kind of answered this one already, is like, how is Mythcraft different from other TTRPGs? And in my opinion, there are three standout things that really make Mythcraft different. All right. Um, the expansive character creation, the AP system, and as the MC of everything that I do, um, monster stat blocks
Forever MC.
forever.
Yeah, monster stat blocks are very interesting. Very interesting.
They're also very intuitive, and they're very. Once you read one or two of them, you understand what's going on all the rest of them. Um, at least that's my opinion. I have a couple of them explained to you, and the rest of them just kind of fall in line. Um, so, another question we have is, how do you play Mythcraft?
All right. You need three things: friends, an MC, and dice.
I mean, what if
Am I
your
wrong?
MC is your friend?
I would hope your MC is your friend. Otherwise, you're going to be in for quite an
Well,
experience.
you just named them as three things,
Well,
and
you
one
need.
was
I mean, yeah.
friends.
Well, hopefully, well, that's why friends was first. Your MC should probably be in your friend group. But no. So to answer the question, um, really, starting to play Mythcraft starts, in my opinion, starts with a character, and that's that's where I always run into my biggest issues is what kind of character do I want to play? How do I want to build the character? Mithril, I can't help you with that one. Sorry. Um, and settling on the kind of character that I do want to play is the hardest part about playing, in my opinion, because there's so many options to character creation that like, just getting started, that makes it hard for me.
Yeah. See, because I MC you so much, I just have a list of characters, and I'm just like, oh, I get to play. Yeah, let's see. Let's roll a D100 and see which one I'm gonna bring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but to like expand a little bit, maybe is I do believe Mythcraft is best balanced between 3 and 6 players and one MC. And that's as someone who has ran for more and less than that grouping I just gave you. Um, I think you know having someone who understands storytelling helps uh, if they're willing to be your MC. I mean, what does it take to play, or how do you play Mythcraft? There's so many ways. I mean, a lot of it is like it's like any other TTRPG. You know, you get together with your friends, whether that's online, in person, you know, and play the way that suits you, whether that's theater of the mind or maps, paper, pencils, or some online tool. A majority of mine is done with online tools because I have no friends in real life too.
Yeah, I was going to say, considering that none of us are remotely close to each other, um, having online tools really helps.
Yeah.
We have people in 3 time zones. Yep, that's what the internet is for. because friends IRL are scary.
Um, but yeah, so
Now, that also being said, to kind of expand on it too, is, obviously you need books, right? You have to
well,
have the Mythcraft play guide. Um, you know,
well,
Now, do you necessarily, when I say books, do I mean that you have to go out and buy books? Do you have to, like the D&D book collection that you can see right above my finger here? Yeah. Do you have to go out and purchase all the books and expansions just to be able to play? Absolutely not, because Quasi Real has made it very clear that any of the PDFs that will be out for Mythcraft will be free and always be free. So anybody can pick it up and play. So that's also something to include, that if you want to play Mythcraft, you can, and don't have to go crazy and buy a bunch of books like some people do. Not me. Not me.
yeah, not you.
Definitely don't have Mythcraft books up there either.
But yeah, um, so when you said that the hardest part for you of playing Mythcraft is deciding on like what are the on the character, what are the basics of making a character?
Well, I mean, the first one that comes up is definitely concept, right? That's where everything starts. Do I want to be a martial person? Do I want to be a physical, range? Or, well, actually, do I want to be martial? Do I want to be melee? Do I want to be ranged? Do I want to be magic based? Do I want to be, dex based? Do I want to be strength based? Do I want to do sneaky stuff? Do I want to be the face of the party? Do I want to be, somebody who's got nothing but, skills and high points and skills? Your basic concepts are pretty much there for all kinds of RPGs. You've got your tanks, you've got your DPS, you've got your, obviously for something turn based like this, you don't really have DPS, but the idea behind it's the same. So really, the just step zero is figuring out, what do you want to play, who do you want to play as, and just really wrapping your brain around how I can build this character. Sure, I can try to keep talking. um yeah, he was trying to be secretive about it. But yeah, so I mean, that's really what it comes down to with your concept. And next is, kind of figuring out what you want to play as. There comes to lineage. And a lot of people will attribute lineage to race. So do you want to be a human? Do you want to be an elf, half elf, dwarf, goblin, or Brunei in this game? There's all sorts of different lineages you can play as. I don't remember exactly what they are off the top of my head, but there's dinosaur folks. And by that, I mean like dinosaur people. There's, yes, as some people have pointed out, most most of, if not all, the regular Mythcraft core content is available on the wiki. So you don't even have to go and find the PDFs. You can do it right off the Mythcraft wiki. Um, so that's something to keep in mind, because I use the wiki a lot. Like when I have my character up, I have, like, right now I have 7 pinned different wiki pages, just so I can reference them in quick succession. But yeah, so back to lineage. Um, there's, all sorts of different kinds of beast folk that are split up. You have Ketek, Kleppen, Hondu, Urkau. Um, you have elemental people. You have satyrs. There's so many different things, so many different lineages, which really just goes into helping you or giving you more struggle of creating your character. Because like I'll tell you, when we decided that we were going to do the podcast, I started making a character. I went through 4 different lineages before I settled on one, and
There are
then
18 in the base game.
yeah, and that's just base game. There's already been several expansions or supplements that have come out that just add on to that. There's a lot. There's a
Yep.
lot that goes into it.
So after that, you kind of assign your attribute points, which we're going to have a video on attributes and attribute points at a later time.
It's a whole separate thing.
It's a whole thing that I can talk for a long period of time on. And then just noting your general stats with your attribute points comes after that. After that has one of, in my opinion, the most creative and memorable, like, background systems for your character, which is the background, occupation, and professions system.
So just to give you a little bit of context for a background, you're gonna have to give me uno momento while I pull this up.
So there are 9 different backgrounds in the base game, and 17 different professions in the base game. And most of them you can intermix as you see fit. There are bonuses to taking certain combos, normally in the tune of skill points, but I find it's I'm less likely to min max the bop system than I am certain other background systems in other games.
It's not quite as dependent on your character. Like you definitely like to go into your concept for sure. You want to have something that's got good flavor that makes sense for what you're doing, why you are where you are, the things, your actions, stuff like that. But as far as mechanically speaking, there's a little bit of influence, but not a ton. Like I've definitely had a
Like I said,
character that relied on what my profession was, but that's because of the style of the character. I've also played characters that, cool, yeah, it adds a little bit of mechanical fun and flavor to it, but it's not something I'm going to use every day. It's not a part of my being. It just so happens to be, a part of my character.
yeah. And I, another thing that I enjoy about Mythcraft is as you level up, you also have a possibility of increasing your level of profession. Um, Maybe making you a better soldier or a better physician or better archivist.
Yeah. More thugs.
More thugs.
Being a captain of a ship that will
Eventually.
eventually get you into a fleet and you end up owning more than one boat. That kind of It's kind of a cool difference. Right? It's not just cool at first level. I picked this, and that's what I am.
Then
I
I
may
never
use the
look back.
feat. I may use the benefit it gives me on occasion, but with Mythcraft, I feel like it definitely comes up.
Well,
Well, it can come up, um, and be a very prevalent part of your character.
yeah. And I again, so like we didn't really touch on this in depth, but yes. So
Yes.
I I we had someone ask if they could be a mortician or something creepy for a profession. I mean, what is a mortician but a physician for dead people?
Yeah.
Just saying.
You're not wrong.
Um,
How would you flavor that, Mr. Permanent MC? How
uh,
how would we go about flavoring that? So just a quick thing. I'll read it out loud to give him a second to think. So the benefit of being a physician is given 2 days of operation at a well-sourced medical facility, you can attempt to treat one patient. You make an intellect or medicine check. If you roll a 15 or higher, then you can cure one creature of a common disease. So I mean, I guess you could still flavor it the same. That you've spent enough time around potential disease and rot that you have the experience to be able to cure somebody of what they've got going on.
yeah. Um, and you know that's not that hard. And then you look at the skills that you get from being a physician. All of them make just as much sense for a mortician. So +3 in medicine. You still do medical things as a mortician. Not gonna get graphic about it, but you do. And
Yep.
then, you know, you get 3 out of a list of other things that I'm not gonna list them all now. That's an idea for a later video, is to go down and explain different backgrounds and occupations. But with that being said, we're very much. I could easily see that, you know, just like, you know, uh, what is an assassin but a highly trained soldier? You know, you make
Yep.
sure you grab the deception, stealth kind of things, but they're just highly trained soldiers.
What is a mafioso but just a thug?
Just a base thug. But yeah. And then, and this is all just things to think about when you're making a character, right? After you finally pick your background, occupation, and profession, then you get into what might be my favorite thing in Mythcraft, which is choosing your starting talent. And there are a lot of them that you can take.
So many.
Um, in our
So
actual
many.
play, we see 3 that were taken. Uh, Family heirloom, which was taken by Joey. Uh,
It,
v,
it's a good heirloom.
yeah. the introduction to magic, um, any of the five sources, you could grab that at first level if you chose to. Uh, Goron and Zephyr both did, and I have to look because I'm trying to remember the name of it.
It wasn't barrel roll, was it?
It might have been Barrel Roll. Yeah, it was. It was
Was
Barrel
it
Roll.
barrel roll that he took
Yep.
its starting feat?
And Lesh took Barrel Roll. That being said, there are lots of them. And the only stipulation of choosing your starting talent is it cannot have a prerequisite. So all of the class talents are locked because they all require level 2. But a lot of the specialization talents and the magic entry talents do not have a prerequisite. So you get to take them.
It should be noted that at level 1, you start out at level 1 as an adventurer. You don't necessarily pick a class talent,
Hmm.
because you're just a level 1 adventurer, and so that's why it requires not having any prerequisites, because in order to dip into a class talent, you have to be able to, I think the requirement for them is just be level 2.
Yep. That is the prerequisite for a class talent. Any of them should be level 2. But now, here is a question for you.
Okay.
What is something that you look for when you make a character?
Oh boy, that's it's a
What is
loaded
your first
question.
thing? What is your very first thing?
It goes back to the concept. I mean, plainly and simple, it's what who do I want this character to be? What do I want this character to represent? What's the best way for me to go about doing that, uh, thematically? And then, ultimately, it also comes down to, um, how close, how much of a representation of myself is the character. Also, really boils down into it as well.
I mean, for me, and again, this is probably coming from a game runner perspective, I normally think, what roles do I want this character to perform in? Right? Like, in my head, I think, what do I want this character to eventually be able to do? And then I go through and I look and I figure out, how do I make that happen as strongly as possible.
Yep. I mean, and that definitely plays in with the, what do I want to do, and then what's the best way I can make it happen.
Right. I mean, but, you know,
I also look for things like, I'm pretty big on, um, voices. I try to do different expanse of voices. Uh, some accents I'm good at, some I'm not. Um, for a while, I've really wanted to play a character with a Russian accent. And so,
Which has quickly become very not Russian,
yeah,
even
yeah,
more mobster.
it's very much somewhere between like Russian and like a Slavic, almost Icelandic, like weird mix. That's mostly because I'm not good at staying consistent. And so I've just kind of come to terms with, all right, well, maybe it's not necessarily Russian, so let me just stick with this one like weird mix that I have, and you know what? That's just Usuri, and I'm okay with that. Um, but yeah, so that was like to go to the next point is you know picking your lineage. My my immediate thought process was, what can I do? What's the most Russian looking and sounding like kind of character that I can have? And unequivocally, it's an Urkow, which is just a bear person.
Right.
And as a
Not
matter of fact,
racially profiling all of Russia.
I mean, no, but muy poquito. But yeah, so like I even went as far as like Usuri may or may not be a Latin derivative from a particular Russian bear in its scientific name. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of a nerd like that. I name a lot of my characters based around something of representation of what they are. In this particular case, um, there's a Russian bear. Part of its like I want to say family name. It has Usuri in it, and that's what I went with. It's also fun to say too. But
It
yeah,
is.
so
So I've always very much enjoyed your naming conventions for your characters. That being said, I suck at naming things
yeah, that I'm usually the naming guy.
half the time. Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Podcast name.
Yes. So, for those that didn't know, the one who suggested the name of the podcast was Joey.
This guy, this face right here. This is me. I take full credit for it. It's funny because it was also proposed that it could be pronounced like 9 different ways too. It was Yvard, Evard, Ivard. Like we and I think we all settled on Yvard, but yeah, there was tons of different ways it could have been pronounced. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I
It
couldn't
was the
tell you
only
where
way I
Yvard came
could
from.
say it consecutively.
But yeah, don't ask me where Yvard came from. It was just happened.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was really good. I enjoyed it. Um,
Does anybody listening have any questions for us? We've still got a little bit of time, or a lot of bit of time. I don't know. Do we have a set time frame for this?
I mean, the suggested time frame was uh 7:30 to 8:30 EST, but it's if we go late, we go late. I do not have anything particularly pressing afterwards.
Sleep. That's about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need
You don't
that.
get much of that anyway, so
I don't.
that's what you get for taking naps all the time.
Listen,
Am I wrong?
if I don't take naps, I don't sleep.
Yeah, when did you take a nap before this?
Oh, fuck. Tuesday?
Oh, so you didn't take a nap before
No.
right now? Oh,
No.
okay. That's surprising.
Yeah, a little bit.
What's also surprising is when you have to call a certain somebody's significant other to wake them up because they're an hour and a half late to their session. Oh, look. Speak of the devil. It's a rebel.
She's not a devil. She's a rebel.
A rebel devil. I don't want to hear from you either, Mithril.
But yes, so naps are life. But if anyone has any questions, we would be more than happy to answer them.
I got a question for you while we let some people come through.
Okay.
What has been your favorite character concept that you've made so far?
Ask me this next week. I
don't know that that's fair.
I have something coming this Sunday. I'll be playing in Mythcraft, the podcast Legends, and I'm bringing a character into that I absolutely adore.
Look at you, Mr. Fancy.
Jesse will also be there.
Well, look at y'all, Mr. Fancy. How's it going, Ari? Glad you could join us.
But
Okay.
so
I'll make sure to ask you next week.
Yeah. So like I very much enjoy that character concept, which is target the best defenses to target in a debuffing situation. So imagine if ooh, I like that question. I will
It's a
answer
good
that
question.
in a moment.
It's a good question.
I got answers for that. But it is a debuffer main. Imagine if Lesh did not buff you guys at all.
That's a scary thought for an MC to have to deal with. That's a really scary thought. Because I think Lesh does a fantastic blend of both buffing and debuffing. Ask you Siri, he knows. But like the amount of AP that he does spend on buffing to be used in just debuffing is kind of nuts to think about.
I mean, I also went some other ways to make things different. Right.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, and again, that kind of leans into the whole, not really gonna find two like characters.
Right. And I don't normally play casters, but this one will be. So
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy behind the kind of characters I make is if brute force isn't the answer, it's the wrong question. So
yeah, you'd be quite susceptible to my future player character. But that's all I'm going to talk about him. He's probably my favorite so far. I also have I attack 100 times, or not 100 times, because that's a bit of an exaggeration. But I attack 3 to 5 times around with a knife, and things don't last. So imagine power building Usiri even harder.
No, having spent time with Knockit, no, I don't. Yes, but no,
No, he's not a full
no,
caster.
no. He's strictly built to just pump out damage with spell slots, but not being a caster.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I had a plague doctor that I demoed on a live stream with the quasi real team. That it was only a knife, 1d4 weapon, but at level 4 is 1d4 plus 5 damage.
It's kind of insane when your basic add-on to your damage is more than your max roll could be on the dice. Love that. That's a
Well, that
feat
was
for you, Suri, to get up to because it's a hefty damage dice. But I'm gonna get there.
you will get there. But
I'm gonna get there.
anyway, so we got a question, and it was, what is my favorite mechanic about the creature stat blocks? And I am going to it right now. So one, the layout of the creatures. The layout of the creatures um, definitely makes things easier to run, in my opinion, as compared to other stat blocks as you're looking at it. Monster level in general, as compared to some other ways of classifying monsters, monster level works so much better. But my favorite mechanic has to be carrying Carapace on the Carrion Worm.
I feel like I should take my headphones off for this because I don't know that I need to know this mechanic.
Um, I don't think it's gonna be wrong to talk about that, but pretty much, if you do X amount of damage, the creature loses AR, but it summons more creatures.
So it's a Tyrannid. That's for my 40K fans. That sounds absolutely horrifying and definitely not going to see one of those in the podcast at all or four.
No, no, not yet.
I would hope not. I feel like it's not going to be a fun battle.
Y'all ain't leveled for that yet.
About what level would we be?
The way I've been balancing for you guys, about 3 more.
I'm going to remember this.
But so we got another question, and it is definitely more of a Tales of Yavard question as compared to a Mythcraft question.
A Mythcraft question.
Yeah.
But we can do a shameless plug and talk about it a little bit. So if you didn't catch it earlier, Lesson Learned is a derivative of Tales of Yvard. But it's also separate in the sense that we're really here to just talk about Mythcraft. But to answer the question, um, for out of all the episodes, which ones did you guys like the most, and which one was the least? That's a tough one. Again, it's like asking me what my favorite
I
anime is.
Yeah. So most is hard for
Mm.
me. I Bounty Hunted
Mm.
Tales 10 was had some very high moments in it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Not me checking what the episode description of that one was.
My least favorite episode of the podcast is the Veil of the Eternal Night demo.
Okay. You want to explain that one?
That is 5 hours and 43 minutes of content that we recorded over 8 hours. And then I edited it for the next 48. I cannot listen to it again. I can't. I can listen to everything else, even with the slight audio issues uh, of mine in the beginning. I cannot listen to the Veil of the Eternal Night demo again.
For what it's worth, I haven't listened to it because that's 5 hours of demo that I would have an ADD moment with a lot. So,
Yeah.
as far as mine go, man, it's tough.
I love Dockside Tales. Just not Dockside. Bounty Hunting Tales. Just
Yeah,
all of
bounty
it.
hunting has been super nice. So what you were saying with bounty hunting 10 too, um, it's yes. There was some definite highlight moments there. Um, it's definitely up there. Like if I was gonna have top three in no particular order, would be definitely bounty hunting or bounty hunting tales part 10. Um, this might be a little biased, uh, but a tale of families or a family's tale.
Yeah.
My prologue, a tale of the family.
Yeah.
Um, just because it wasn't the first session we recorded, but
Yeah, it
it
was.
was. Well, we didn't we
Nope.
do?
Nope. That was the first
Oh, okay,
session of the podcast that was recorded.
okay. So that was kind of a highlight for me. Plus, I mean, it was my character's backstory, the emotions, the setup, the betrayal. Spoiler, but not really. Like all of it put into one was to me just absolutely fantastic storytelling. Um, I also see, I can't even put like a top three on it. Like this, the last episode, not the episode that dropped yesterday, but Bounty Hunting Part 11 was a fantastic episode mechanically. I got to use things that I had been storing up on. There was some interesting lore dump. There was a lot of things happened and went on that really are going to help progress things along. Um, so I mean, there's been so many episodes where we've just had so many good laughs. You know, we had a shopping episode which was a little number crunchy, but at the end of the day, it was super fun. You know, I mean, there's just been so much stuff, and it's really just hard to put favorites on them. Like I love them all. Really, I have so much fun doing the podcast, and I'm sure everybody else does too. So, thanks, Ari, for asking a really difficult question.
An extremely difficult question for us to answer live that may or may not be going on a list of questions for the next Tales of Tales.
Oh boy, let me start preparing.
But yeah, so we have accomplished our original goal of an hour. Gonna see who, if anyone else has any more questions for us. But thank you all for coming out. Definitely appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in. So I think that's going to be all that we have for you today. If you want to see how everything we talked about tonight works in our game, you can check out our actual play podcast. We've talked about it a little bit. It is Tales of Yvard. And then always let us know what you guys think about tonight. Give us some comments, questions, something that we can talk about next week. And we hope to see you then on the next episode of Lesson Learned.
Goodbye.